It's been a slow couple of weeks for game releases. Nothing major seems to be coming out for another month or two, so I've been looking through a bunch of indie games for my next review. First I tried Everhood, which is basically just a bullet hell rhythm game on copious amounts of PCP. It had good writing and enjoyable gameplay, but I hit a wall early on and couldn't finish it, so I put it aside for right now. Then I tried Evo Wave, a free 3D platformer on Steam that resembles Banjo-Kazooie making out with a 1980s album cover. It was fun, and I recommend it if you're looking to kill 3 hours, but it was so short that I couldn't fill a proper review with it. Then I tried At Dead of Night, a modern attempt at an FMV horror game that I quickly got bored with 2 hours in. Sure, it was suspenseful and atmospheric, but if I wanted to spend several hours wandering around a boring hotel, I would take another road trip to Delaware. Finally, I decided I would just review what I've been playing lately, which is Fallout 4, otherwise known as Bethesda's slow, inevitable descent towards mediocrity. The Fallout franchise is a series of clever, subversive games about a 1950s-style post-apocalypse. Unfortunately, more recent games have been ditching what makes them unique in favor of standard FPS combat and pointless gameplay gimmicks. In comparison, the first few Fallout games were like a series of well-written books, whereas Fallout 4 is more like a child's toy box. Lots of little fun bits to play with however you choose, but lacks any sort of structure or depth. The game is kind of shallow and gutless and cuts its own legs off just so it can be like every other game in the market. Which is not to say that it's completely without merit. If it was, then it wouldn't have clocked over 100 hours in this godforsaken game. So what is it that annoys me, and what is it that makes me keep playing regardless? Well, as always, I think the best place to start is with the core gameplay. See, previous Fallout games were complex RPGs, with combat being just one of many potential solutions to a problem. Fallout 4, on the other hand, is a first-person shooter with some light RPG mechanics. Over the course of the series, the gunplay has slowly overshadowed the RPG aspects like a poorly timed storm cloud over a lovely barbecue. Fallout 4 tipped the scales, and now gunfighting is basically all you'll be doing. This makes the combat feel less special and more tedious, especially when enemy stratagems are so poor. All enemies basically have two methods of attack: pop in and out of cover and shoot at you like it's an aggressive game of whack-a-mole, or run up and nibble on you until you fall over. No tactics, no flanking, no intelligent thought whatsoever. But even with all this said, the combat in this game is still fun. Shooting your way through a bandit compound or a city district full of super mutants is as satisfying as a real office massacre, and to be honest, it's one of the few strong pillars that this game has to stand on. This is further helped by the new equipment customization system. Every single weapon and armor piece you pick up can be customized and adjusted, giving items a very personable feel. For someone like me, who loves personalizing and creating things, this is a really fun way to improve the combat. Decking out some random bandit's crappy pipe rifle with an automatic receiver, a high-powered scope, and a magazine that holds more bullets than your average American shopping mall definitely appeals to players like myself. Of course, to get higher-level customization options, you need to invest in the weaponsmithing and science perks, but I find that this is a good way to balance out the extra upgrades you're giving your weapons. I only have two issues with this new feature. One, the overall look of your equipment can't be changed that much. The ability to add paint jobs or aesthetic parts to your gear would have made the system a whole lot more satisfying. Two, the system seems somewhat unnecessary when picking up random guns and armor from fallen enemies seems to work just as well. The difference in effectiveness between random weapons and custom ones seems to be negligible at best. To be honest though, the extensive customization options for weapons and armor is one of the major reasons I keep playing. It gives the gunplay a better feeling of progression over time, even if the enemies really don't. What does not keep me playing, however, is the base building system, which is complete garbage. I question its very purpose in this game, since there's barely anything a custom base can offer you that a regular hideout can't. In fact, pretty much everything you could possibly need can be found in the first safe zone you come across, so there's barely any point in building anything at all. And even if you want to, the feature isn't very well explained, the snapping mechanics don't work properly, and everything you build will look exactly the same. Wow, I've upgraded my beat-up shed full of crack addicts to a slightly larger beat-up shed full of crack addicts. The entire system could have been thrown out the window and nobody would miss a thing. I wouldn't even get so upset about this if there weren't story bits that force you to engage in the base building mechanics. Ah yes, let's stop the fun adventuring for about 2 hours so that we can sit in a ditch and build a giant robot schlong for all the world to come and see. Point being, it's lazy, and it's only there to make the game more attractive to a wider audience, which ironically makes it less accessible. I find it strange that Bethesda wanted to make the game appeal to a wider audience when Fallout already had a strong fanbase. And those fans don't like it for its simplicity, they like Fallout for being complex, thoughtful, and full of personality. Fallout 4 only disappoints these fans since its world is so stale and dull. Even with the advantage of better graphics technology, the game still manages to have less personality than its predecessors. New Vegas may look like it was made out of papier-mâché and Play-Doh, but it was still brimming with charm and detail. Every little corner had something new to discover or explore. Every new area had a story to tell. In Fallout 4, it seems much harder to find things of interest. Sure, there's the occasional blip on the radar with things like the Independence or the Silver Shroud, but there's just not enough. It just feels like a big, empty city filled with bland, inexpressive characters who all share the same three voices. Quests seem to be hard to come across unless you're specifically looking for them. And most of the time the quest is just go to a place and shoot some things. Maybe pick up some random garbage, too. Good, this game can emulate a typical trip to Walmart, but that's not really what I'm here for. I think that in trying to make the game bigger, Bethesda bit off a bit more than they could chew, and had to fill the empty spaces between the interesting parts with repetitive dungeons full of the same bandits with the same pipe rifles and the same taunts getting cut off as their heads are turned into strawberry jam. There just aren't enough interesting bits to find. Although maybe I find the world more bland than usual because of the Wonder Bread main character you're forced to play as. As opposed to previous Fallout games, the player character is an actual character, one with a backstory and, supposedly, a personality, which I don't really have a problem with. What I do have a problem with is the fact that they're so immensely boring. The multiple choice dialogue tree has been replaced with a painfully simplified system, with a limit of only 4 options. And these options always convey the exact same message and bring you to the same place no matter what choice you pick. You always have the nice option, the mean option, the sarcastic option, and the question. And that's pretty much all you get. No philosophical discussions with passing hobos or asking robot sex workers to do unspeakable things to your tender butthole, just be nice or be a jerk. And this makes the so-called character that Bethesda was going for fall completely flat. Their only driving motivation is finding their son, but that's a bit difficult to take seriously when you, as a psychic brain parasite living in their head, have them go start a career in gardening or try unsuccessfully hitting on their spunky reporter friend. And rest assured, the NPCs you interact with are just as bland. There are 4 factions you can side with during the main storyline, and they all suck. The major conflict of the setting is based around synths, a line of androids that look, act, and sound like humans. Each faction has a different philosophy about the synths. First up, we have the Brotherhood of Steel, or as I like to call them, the Metal Sky Racists. They just think that synths are monsters that need to be destroyed. Then there's the Institute, a band of seclusive nerds who created the synths but treat them like servants. They may actually be the world's best chance for progress, but their pretentious attitude can put people off, and they're widely mistrusted by the public. There's also the Railroad, a bunch of robot weebs who will do anything to cuddle and protect their synth waifus. They like synths, but their enthusiasm can make people uncomfortable. Finally, there's the Minutemen, also known as Another Settlement Needs Your Help, General. They're fine for the most part, but seem pretty helpless without you. In fact, all of the factions rely on you for pretty much everything, sending you out to shoot stuff and fetch things until the game is over and you get your crap ending. No matter which faction you side with, you get practically the same ending, with the same boring speech given by the player character. I guess we can't always have Ron Perlman narrating about how awesome we are, but I would have thought that the iconic ending cutscene would have had more work put into it than this. It just leaves the game feeling anticlimactic, and it only accentuates the overall dullness of the story. In summary, Fallout 4 is a game with really solid core gameplay and extensive customization, but one that fails in pretty much every other aspect. Almost everything that's new just feels like a gimmick that could have been left out. Every new idea only seems to be there to cater to 12-year-olds with their mother's credit card information. The Bethesda creation engine is only getting worse with age as well, and Fallout 4 is incredibly symptomatic of this issue. Bugs, framerate issues, infinite loading screens, texture screw-ups, all of this is catastrophic for immersion and only makes the game more difficult to play. Since the game has been out for a few years now, most people probably already have a definitive opinion about it. Regardless, I'd say that Fallout 4 is really only worth getting if you're familiar with Bethesda RPGs and are willing to put up with its faults for the sake of fun moment-to-moment gameplay. So if you're willing to shove your arm down a barrel full of liquefied pig carcasses to grab the shiny gem at the bottom, then go nuts. As for me, I now have blood and guts up to my shoulder, and I'm pretty sure this diamond I found is actually an especially large piece of road salt. This has been Tyladin. Thank you so much for watching.